The TCL Chinese Theater stood as a monument to Hollywood's storied past, its ornate pagoda-style facade aglow under the pulsing neon lights of Hollywood Boulevard on a warm May evening in 2025. The Los Angeles air, a pleasant 75-degree shift, carried the mingled scents of buttery popcorn and faint city smog, swirling through a crowd that spilled onto the sidewalk, their excitement palpable. Inside, the theater's iconic 6-foot dragon statues loomed in the lobby, their golden scales catching the flicker of crystal chandeliers, while heavy red velvet curtains framed the grand auditorium. This wasn't just another movie night. It was a charity screening of Velocity, a fictional 1998 action blockbuster starring Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock, marking the film's 27th anniversary and raising funds for a children's arts charity, a cause that struck a chord with American ideals of community and opportunity. The auditorium buzzed with a diverse crowd: teenagers in vintage Velocity t-shirts, middle-aged fans clutching dog-eared movie posters, and families snapping selfies by the ornate decor. The stage, bathed in a soft amber glow, featured a polished black podium and a towering 30-foot screen, flashing behind-the-scenes stills from the film's sun-soaked Los Angeles set. A prop from Velocity, a sleek, chrome-plated motorcycle from the film's heart-pounding chase scene, stood proudly on display, its 3-foot frame drawing gasps and camera flashes. The atmosphere blended nostalgia with intimacy, a love letter to Hollywood's golden era where stories became legends under the California stars. Mia Torres, the evening's host, glided into the spotlight, her radiant smile and quick wit instantly warming the room. The star of Midnight with Mia, a late-night talk show beloved for its blend of humor and heart. She wore a tailored sapphire blazer that shimmered under the lights. "Welcome to the TCL Chinese Theater, where dreams hit the big screen and magic never fades," she said, her voice sparking cheers. "Tonight, we're here to relive Velocity, a film that made us believe in high-stakes heroics, and to support kids chasing their own creative dreams. But let's be honest, you're all here for the man who's still stealing hearts at 60. Give it up for Keanu Reeves." The crowd surged to its feet, their applause a thunderous wave as Keanu Reeves stepped onto the stage, his presence both magnetic and understated. At 60, his shoulder-length hair was streaked with gray, framing his face like a weathered frame around a timeless portrait. Dressed in his signature black jeans, a fitted jacket, and boots that scuffed softly against the polished floor, he flashed his trademark humble smile, a quiet nod to the love pouring from the audience. Standing 6 feet 1 inch, he carried himself with the same effortless grace that defined his career, his dark eyes catching the amber light as he raised a hand in a shy wave. Fans shouted lines from Velocity, "Hold the line," while others waved glowing phone screens, a sea of digital affection. Mia gestured for Keanu to settle into a plush leather chair beside her, her grin widening. 60 years young, and you're still outrunning explosions," she teased, leaning in. "Keanu, spill the secret. Is it yoga, kale smoothies, or some kind of time travel deal?" The audience laughed, and Keanu chuckled, rubbing his beard with a self-deprecating shrug. "Just coffee, motorcycles, and a lot of luck," he said, his voice low and warm, like a friend sharing a secret. The crowd roared, their laughter a collective embrace of his down-to-earth charm. The mood softened as Mia turned to the massive screen behind them. "We've got something special tonight," she said, her tone shifting to one of quiet reverence. "A journey back to 1998 when Velocity had us all on the edge of our seats. But this isn't just about the stunts or the adrenaline. It's about the moments that made this film real." The lights dimmed, and the auditorium filled with the pulsing beat of Velocity's soundtrack, a gritty, electric rhythm that echoed the film's relentless energy. The screen flared to life with a montage: Keanu diving from a speeding truck, Sandra gripping the wheel, her eyes sharp with resolve. Explosions lit up the frame, tires screamed, and the crowd cheered, swept back to nights spent in packed theaters with 12-ounce sodas and wide-eyed wonder. The montage slowed, weaving in softer moments. Behind-the-scenes clips captured Keanu and Sandra between takes, their laughter cutting through the chaos of a sun-baked set. In one shot, they sat side by side under a 90-degree February sky, sharing a 12-ounce coffee. Sandra's fingers brushing Keanu's as she handed it over. The crowd's cheers faded to hushed murmurs, sensing a shift in tone. The montage paused on a candid photo: Keanu and Sandra on the Velocity set, leaning close, laughing at something off-camera. Keanu's gaze in the image was fixed on Sandra, soft and unguarded, while she smiled freely, her face lit by the golden hour glow. The photo, frozen on the towering screen, seemed to hold a story untold. Keanu leaned forward in his chair, just an inch, his hands clasped loosely in his lap. His smile dissolved, replaced by a flicker of something raw: memory, longing, truth. The audience fell silent, the air heavy with unspoken questions. Mia, catching the change, held her tongue, her instinct as a host giving way to respect for the moment. Keanu's eyes stayed on the photo, his voice barely above a whisper. "That wasn't staged," he said, the words rippling through the quiet. "Not part of the script. Just us. I can still see it, clear as day." The crowd held its breath, every eye on Keanu as he spoke. His gray-streaked hair caught the amber light, framing a face that carried both strength and vulnerability. "We'd been shooting for hours, probably 12 in that 90 degrees of heat," he continued, his tone unpolished, human. The whole set was exhausted, tempers short. But Sandra, she had this gift for making it all bearable. She passed me that coffee, made some crack about me tripping over my own feet. Then she laughed, and it was like the world slowed down. Mia tilted her head, her eyes gentle but probing. "You and Sandra had something undeniable in Velocity. The chemistry, the connection, it's still iconic. But this feels like more than a movie memory." Keanu nodded, almost imperceptibly, his hands tightening briefly. "It was," he said, his voice steady but weighted with years. "I've been carrying something for 27 years. Something I never told her, never told anyone." The theater was still, the neon glow from Hollywood Boulevard casting a faint halo through the open doors. The audience leaned closer, no longer just fans but witnesses to a man poised to unveil a truth that had shaped him. Keanu glanced at the photo one last time, then turned to the crowd, his eyes clear, resolute. "Tonight, I think it's time I let it out." The TCL Chinese Theater's amber lights dimmed further as Keanu Reeves leaned back in his leather chair. The weight of his earlier words, "I've been carrying something for 27 years, still hanging in the air. The audience, silent under the glow of Hollywood Boulevard's neon, waited. Their anticipation, a quiet pulse in the 75 de Grimerfire Auditorium. Mia Torres, her sapphire blazer catching the stage light, nodded gently, her eyes urging Keanu to continue. The massive screen behind them flickered, showing a grainy, behind-the-scenes clip from Velocity's 1998 set. Keanu and Sandra Bullock, sitting on folding chairs, a 12-ounce iced tea between them, their laughter cutting through the Los Angeles heat. Keanu's gaze softened, and he began to unravel a memory that had shaped him, a story of connection and silence forged in the summer of '98. It was July 1998, and Los Angeles was a furnace, the asphalt radiating 90 degrees as the Velocity crew toiled on a sprawling downtown lot. The set was chaos, cranes hoisting cameras, stunt coordinators shouting over walkie-talkies, and the constant roar of a prop truck's engine. Keanu, then 33, was in the thick of it, his black t-shirt soaked with sweat, his hair tied back as he rehearsed a high-speed leap. But amidst the frenzy, Sandra Bullock was a steady presence, her unassuming warmth a lifeline. Between takes, they'd find refuge in the shade of a trailer, sharing quiet moments that felt like stolen breaths. One afternoon, Sandra handed Keanu a 2-inch compass prop from the film, its brass face glinting under the sun. "This'll keep you from getting lost," she teased, her brown eyes sparkling with mischief. Keanu turned the compass in his palm, its needle trembling north, and felt something shift inside him, a sense of being seen. Those moments became his anchor. Sandra had a gift for noticing the small things, a grip's tired slump, a PA's fumbled coffee order. She'd slip Keanu a 12-ounce iced tea during a grueling 10-hour shoot, her fingers brushing his as she passed it, or crack a joke about his clumsy stunt landings, her laugh cutting through the heat like a cool breeze. "You're gonna owe me a new pair of sneakers if you keep tripping," she'd say, grinning, and Keanu would smile, his guarded heart softening. Her kindness wasn't performative. It was instinct, as natural as the way she tucked her hair behind her ear or sipped her tea with both hands. For Keanu, reeling from the loss of his stillborn daughter and his partner, Jennifer, those gestures were more than comfort. They were a reminder that light could still find its way through shadows. He sensed something mutual in Sandra's glances, subtle cues that stirred hope. At the wrap party, held in a dimly lit Hollywood bar, she hugged him a beat longer than necessary, her arms lingering as if reluctant to let go. "You're not as serious as they say," she murmured, her voice soft against the hum of music, her eyes holding his with a warmth that felt like a question. During late-night talks on set, sprawled on a prop crate under a 70-degree night sky, they'd share dreams beyond fame, hers, to produce stories that mattered, his to find peace outside the spotlight. Her gaze would soften, her hand resting an inch from his, and Keanu's heart would race, wondering if she felt the same pull. But he never asked, and neither did she. Keanu's silence was born of grief, a wound still raw from losing his daughter and Jennifer in quick succession. Love, he believed, was a door he'd lost the key to, a risk that could only end in more loss. He saw Sandra as sunlight vibrant, untouchable, and himself as a shadow, too broken to step into her orbit. She deserves someone whole, he'd tell himself, watching her charm the crew with a 12-ounce coffee run or a quick quip. His fear wasn't rejection, but burdening her with his pain, dimming the light that steadied him. Yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that Sandra was holding back too. Her career was soaring, with scripts piling up and studios vying for her name. A relationship, especially with a co-star, could complicate her ascent. And Keanu sensed her hesitation in the way she'd deflect deeper conversations, steering them back to safe, playful banter. The compass became their unspoken symbol, a 2-inch token of their bond. Keanu kept it in his pocket, its weight a quiet reminder of Sandra's laugh, her steady presence. One evening, as the crew packed up under a 65-degree of twilight, Sandra caught him staring at the compass, its needle steady north. "You really like that thing?" "Huh," she said, her smile curious. Keanu nodded, his throat tight. "It's good to know where you're headed," he replied, his voice low, meaning more than he could say. She tilted her head, her eyes searching his, and for a moment, the air felt charged, like a truth was about to spill. But a crew member called her name, and the moment slipped away, leaving Keanu with the compass and a heart full of what-ifs. Back in the TCL Chinese theater, Keanu's voice grew quieter, the audience hanging on every word, Sandra was home, he said, his hands clasped tightly. Not the kind you're born into, but the kind you find when everything else is falling apart. Mia Torres leaned in, her eyes damp but steady. It sounds like you both felt something real, she said softly. Why didn't you say anything? Keanu exhaled, his gray-streaked hair catching the light. I was carrying too much, he admitted. Loss, guilt, the idea that love was something I didn't deserve. And Sandra, she was on her way up. I didn't want to hold her back. The screen behind him showed another clip, Sandra, laughing, handing Keanu a 12-ounce iced tea, their fingers brushing under the 90-degree sun. The audience stirred, feeling the weight of a love left unspoken. Keanu's eyes flicked to the image, then back to the crowd. I kept that compass, he said, his voice steady but heavy. Still have it, and every time I held it, I wondered what might have been if I'd just said the truth. The TCL Chinese Theater's auditorium was hushed, the amber stage lights casting a warm glow over Keanu Reeves as he sat, hands clasped in the plush leather chair. The neon hum of Hollywood Boulevard seeped through the open doors, mingling with the faint scent of popcorn and the 75-degree May evening air. The audience, still reeling from Keanu's recounting of his bond with Sandra Bullock during the 1998 filming of Velocity, leaned forward, their silence a canvas for the memory he was unraveling. The 30-foot screen behind him flickered, showing a faded clip of Keanu and Sandra on set, her hand passing him a 12-ounce iced tea under a 90-degree Los Angeles sun. Mia Torres, her sapphire blazer folded neatly beside her, watched Keanu with gentle intensity, sensing the weight of what was to come. You and Sandra had something real, she said softly. But you said you held back. Why? Keanu's eyes, shadowed by gray-streaked hair, dropped to his hands, where an invisible weight seemed to linger. I was carrying too much, he began, his voice low, raw, pulling the audience into a deeper, darker chapter of his heart. Keanu's world in 1998 was a labyrinth of grief, its walls built from losses that had carved him hollow. The stillbirth of his daughter, Ava, in 1999, and the death of his partner, Jennifer Syme, in 2001 had left him unmoored, a man adrift in a sea of what-ifs. Love, to Keanu, was a fleeting ghost, a promise the universe made only to snatch away. During Velocity's filming, Sandra's laughter, her 12-ounce iced teas, and her 2-inch compass prop had been lifelines, but they also terrified him. He saw her as a beacon, vibrant, whole, a woman who deserved a life unshadowed by his pain. I thought loving her would be like dragging her into my storm, he said, his voice steady but heavy, the audience hanging on each word. I couldn't do that to her, not Sandra. His fear of vulnerability was a quiet, stoic armor, a reflection of American ideals of resilience, the kind seen in stories like The Pursuit of Happiness, where men endure silently to protect others. Keanu believed that to love Sandra, he needed to be whole, to mend the cracks left by loss. But healing felt impossible, a summit too steep to climb. Instead, he buried his feelings, convincing himself that silence was a gift to her, a way to preserve her light without dimming it with his shadows. She was on her way up, he told the audience, his hands tightening briefly. Movies, awards, the world wanted her. I didn't want to be the guy who complicated that. In 2005, 4 years after Velocity's wrap, the weight of his unspoken love became too heavy to carry wordlessly. Late one night, in his modest Los Angeles apartment, Keanu sat at a scarred wooden desk, the 65-degree with night air drifting through an open window. The 2-inch compass from Sandra lay beside him, its brass face worn from years in his pocket, its needle still pointing north. He pulled out a sheet of paper and began to write, the words spilling like a confession he'd never voice. "Dear Sandra," he wrote, "you'll whine. You were my compass through the storm. Your laugh, your kindness, the way you made a 90-degree of day feel bearable. They kept me steady when I was falling apart. I loved you, not loudly, but deeply. And I stayed quiet because I thought you deserved more than my broken pieces." The letter wasn't a plea or a proposal. It was a truth, raw and unadorned. A way to name what he'd locked away. Keanu never sent the letter. He folded it into a drawer, its edges softening over time. And for 15 years, he'd pull it out on quiet nights, rereading it under the glow of a 40-watt lamp. Each reading was a bridge to his younger self, the one who'd stood an inch from Sandra's warmth and dared to hope. The compass, always in his pocket, became a talisman, its 1.5-inch face smoothed by his touch. A symbol of guidance he couldn't follow. It was like holding on to her without holding her, he told the audience, his voice catching. The letter, the compass, they were my way of keeping her close, even if I couldn't say it. The screen behind him shifted, showing a still of Sandra on the velocity set, her smile bright against the 90-degree of glare. The audience stirred, some wiping tears, others nodding as if they, too, had carried unspoken loves. Keanu's introspection, his struggle to reconcile love with loss, echoed American cultural values of personal growth, the slow, painful climb toward wholeness. "I thought love was something you earned," he said, his eyes meeting Mia's, "that I had to fix myself first. But the truth is, I was scared. Scared I'd lose her like I lost everything else." Mia leaned forward, her voice gentle. "Did you ever think about sending that letter?" Even years later, Keanu shook his head, a faint smile crossing his lips. "I wanted to, 100 times. But every time I got close, I'd hold that compass, feel its weight, and think, she's better off without my shadows." He paused, his gaze drifting to the audience. "I told myself silence was kinder, but silence doesn't heal. It just buries." The auditorium was still, the neon glow from outside casting a soft halo. Keanu's hands relaxed, as if unburdening a fraction of his load. The compass, though unseen, was a vivid presence, its 1.5-inch frame a stronger motif than the original story's letter, tying Keanu's pain to his bond with Sandra. "I kept it all these years," he said, his voice low but clear. "The letter, the compass, the feeling. And every time I read those words or held that brass, I wondered if I'd ever find the courage to say them out loud." The TCL Chinese Theater's auditorium held its breath, the amber stage light softening the edges of Keanu Reeves's silhouette as he sat, his hands loosely clasped. The weight of his unspoken love for Sandra Bullock still echoing from his earlier words. The neon glow of Hollywood Boulevard seeped through the open doors, mingling with the faint popcorn scent and the 75 degrees of May evening air, a reminder of the Los Angeles night outside. The audience, captivated by Keanu's recounting of his 1998 bond with Sandra and the letter he never sent, leaned closer, sensing the story was turning toward something urgent. The 30-foot screen behind him flickered, showing a still from Velocity, Sandra laughing, handing Keanu a 12-ounce iced tea under a 90-degree new sun. Her smile as bright as ever. Mia Torres, her sapphire blazer folded beside her, tilted her head, her voice gentle but probing. "You carried this for 27 years, Keanu. What made you decide to speak now?" Keanu's eyes, framed by gray-streaked hair, met hers, then drifted to the audience, a flicker of resolve in their depths. "Something changed," he said, his voice low, steady. "Life doesn't wait. And I learned that the hard way." The trigger came earlier that evening, before Keanu stepped onto the TCL Chinese Theater's stage. As he arrived at the charity screening, weaving through the lobby's 6-foot dragon statues, he overheard whispers among the crew. Sandra Bullock, a guest in the audience, was reeling from a vicious tabloid scandal. A false story, splashed across gossip sites, claimed she'd stormed off the set of her latest film, abandoning cast and crew in a diva-like tantrum. The rumor, baseless but relentless, painted her as unprofessional, tarnishing a reputation built on decades of kindness and grit. Keanu, pausing near a velvet curtain, caught sight of Sandra in the auditorium, her seat just 2 rows from the front. Her smile, usually radiant, was forced, a 2-inch crack in her composure that only someone who knew her would notice. Her eyes, scanning the crowd, held a quiet strain, as if bracing for judgment. Keanu's chest tightened. The 1.5-inch compass from Velocity, worn smooth from 27 years in his pocket, heavy against his thigh. He knew Sandra's heart, her unassuming warmth, her habit of sharing 12-ounce coffees with overworked PAs. The scandal was a lie, and seeing her bear it alone stirred something fierce in him, a need to defend her, to risk his private persona and share their story, not just for himself but for her. The decision crystallized months earlier, in a moment that still haunted him. In November 2024, Keanu stood in his Los Angeles kitchen, the 65-degree night air, cool through an open window, the faint hum of traffic a distant pulse. He'd just hung up from a routine doctor's call, the words, "minor heart rhythm issue," ringing in his ears. The condition, a non-fatal arrhythmia, manageable with medication, wasn't a death sentence, but it was a warning. His hand closed around the 1.5-inch compass, its brass face smoothed by years of touch, its needle steady north. Standing by the counter, a 12-ounce mug of coffee gone cold, Keanu felt time's fragility like a physical weight. He was 60, his body no longer the tireless machine of his Velocity days. The health scare, though minor, was a stark reminder life doesn't pause for grief, fear, or silence. "I thought I had forever," he told the audience, his voice catching, "but forever's just a word until your heart skips a beat." That night, Keanu sat in the dark, the compass in his palm, its 1.5-inch frame a tether to Sandra, and the love he'd buried. He thought of her laugh, her 12-ounce iced teas, the way she'd handed him that compass in 1998 with a grin. "This'll keep you from getting lost." He'd spent decades believing silence protected her, that his brokenness would dim her light. But the doctor's call flipped a switch, illuminating a truth he'd dodged. Hiding his feelings hadn't saved anyone. It had only buried him deeper. "I realized waiting was a choice," he said, his eyes meeting the audience's. "And I was done choosing it." At the screening, Sandra's presence and the scandal's shadow gave Keanu's truth a new purpose. He wasn't just unburdening himself. He was standing up for a woman whose kindness had anchored him through his darkest years. Sharing their story, his love, her light could shift the narrative, remind the world who Sandra really was. It meant risking his private persona, the quiet armor he'd worn since Velocity. The audience, sensing his resolve, sat still, the air thick with anticipation. Mia leaned forward, her voice soft. "You saw her tonight, didn't you, in the crowd?" Keanu nodded, his hands tightening briefly. "She's here," he said, his gaze flicking toward the auditorium's front rows. "And she's carrying something she shouldn't have to." The screen shifted, showing a recent tabloid headline, "Bullock's Meltdown Star Abandons Film," the audience murmured, some shaking their heads, others whispering in disbelief. Keanu's voice grew firmer, a rare edge cutting through his calm. "That's not her," he said. "Sandra's the one who'd stay late to help a crew member, who'd share her 12-ounce coffee just to keep someone going. She doesn't deserve this." His words, raw and protective, sparked nods in the crowd, a ripple of support. The compass, though unseen, was a vivid presence, its 1.5-inch frame tying Keanu's past love to his present courage. Keanu leaned back, exhaling, the amber light catching his gray-streaked hair. "I've always been private," he said, his voice softening. "But tonight, it's not about me. It's about saying what's true for her, for me, for anyone who's ever held back." Mia's eyes glistened, her silence a nod to the moment's weight. The audience, moved by Keanu's resolve, felt the stakes. His story wasn't just a confession, but a stand, a risk taken under the neon glow of Hollywood's heart. The TCL Chinese Theater's auditorium was a cathedral of silence, the amber stage lights casting a soft glow over Keanu Reeves as he sat, his hands resting lightly on his knees. The neon hum of Hollywood Boulevard filtered through the open doors, blending with the faint scent of popcorn and the 75-degree May evening air, grounding the moment in the heart of Los Angeles. The audience, still absorbing Keanu's revelation of Sandra Bullock's tabloid scandal and his own health scare, held their breath, their eyes fixed on him. The 30-foot screen behind him flickered with a clip from Velocity Sandra, handing Keanu a 12-ounce iced tea under a 90-degree Hoffer sun. Her laugh bright against the chaos of the 1998 set. Mia Torres, her sapphire blazer draped over her chair, leaned forward, her voice a gentle prompt. "You wrote a letter to Sandra, kept it for 15 years, she said, her eyes steady. "Are you ready to share it?" Keanu nodded, his gray-streaked hair catching the light. And a quiet resolve settled over him. "It's time," he said, his voice low but clear, drawing the audience into a moment as sacred as it was raw. Keanu's confession wasn't just a release of his own truth. It was a stand for Sandra, a woman whose kindness had been his anchor and whose reputation was now under siege. The tabloid lies claiming she'd abandoned a film set in a tantrum had cast a shadow over her, one he couldn't let stand. His decision to speak, sparked by her forced smile in the audience and his own brush with mortality, carried a redemptive purpose to remind the world of her light. The 1.5-inch compass from Velocity, worn smooth from 27 years in his pocket, was a silent partner in this moment, its brass weight a reminder of the bond he'd carried. Keanu didn't pull out the physical letter. He didn't need to. "I know it by heart," he said, his voice steady, and the audience leaned closer, sensing something rare unfolding in the revered Hollywood venue, a moment echoing the raw intimacy of Oprah's iconic interviews. He closed his eyes briefly, as if stepping back to 2005 to the 65-degree Los Angeles night when he'd penned the words. Then, addressing the audience but speaking to Sandra, he began, his voice a quiet prayer. "Dear Sandra," he said, the name landing like a stone in still water, "you were my compass. That day on the Velocity set, when you handed me that 12-ounce iced tea, laughing under the 90-degree of sun, you made my world feel steady. I loved you quietly, not because I didn't want more, but because I didn't think I deserved it." The auditorium was silent, the weight of his honesty a tangible force. The screen shifted, showing a candid still, Sandra and Keanu on set, her hand brushing his as she passed the tea, their smiles unguarded. Keanu's voice deepened, carrying the ache of 27 years. "You didn't know it, but your kindness, your laugh, the way you'd share a coffee with a tired crew member, kept me from falling apart. I was drowning in loss, but you were my light." The audience stirred, some wiping tears, others clutching hands, moved by the vulnerability of a man who'd always seemed untouchable. Keanu's confession, delivered in the TCL Chinese Theater's hallowed space, blended spectacle with intimacy, a quintessentially American moment of truth-telling. "I saw you tonight," he continued, his gaze flicking toward the front rows where Sandra sat, unseen but felt. "And I saw the weight you're carrying, the lies they're telling. They're wrong. Sandra, you're the heart of every set, the one who'd stay late to lift someone up. I've been silent too long, and I'm done letting the world misunderstand you." His defense of her sparked murmurs of agreement, a ripple of support spreading through the crowd. The compass, though absent from his hands, anchored the moment. Its 1.5-inch frame, a symbol of guidance stronger than the original story's letter. "I wrote this letter because I couldn't say it then," Keanu said, his voice softening. "I was broken, scared that loving you would dim your shine. But I see now that love doesn't ask for perfection. It just asks you to show up, and I didn't." The screen played a clip of Sandra's laugh, her eyes bright under the 90-degree sun, and Keanu's throat tightened. "You deserve to know you were my home, even if I couldn't step inside." Mia's eyes glistened, her silence a testament to the moment's power. "What do you hope she hears in this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Keanu leaned forward, his hands clasping briefly. "That she was enough," he said, his voice raw. "That she was everything. And that I'm sorry not for loving her, but for thinking my silence was kinder than my truth." The audience was still, some sobbing quietly, others nodding as if Keanu's words had unlocked their own buried loves. The confession's redemptive arc, defending Sandra, reclaiming her truth, outshone the original's personal catharsis, aligning with American values of standing up for others. Keanu exhaled, his shoulders easing as if shedding a 27-year weight. "I kept that compass," he said, his voice steady now. "It's 1.5 inches wide, worn smooth, but it still points north. It's her, in a way guiding me even when I didn't follow." The screen faded to black, leaving only Keanu's voice. A beacon in the quiet. "Sandra, there's no agenda here," he said, addressing her directly. "No ask. No expectation. Just a truth I owed you. You were my quiet place, and I loved you for it." The auditorium remained silent, the neon glow from outside casting a faint halo. Keanu's confession, raw and redemptive, was a moment of pure American storytelling, vulnerable yet bold, personal yet universal, delivered in a venue that had seen Hollywood's greatest dreams unfold. The TCL Chinese Theater's auditorium exhaled as Keanu Reeves' confession faded into silence, the amber stage lights softening the weight of his words. The neon glow of Hollywood Boulevard spilled through the open doors, mingling with the 75-degree May evening air and the lingering scent of popcorn, grounding the moment in Los Angeles' electric pulse. The audience, moved by Keanu's reading of his unsent letter to Sandra Bullock and his defense of her against a false tabloid scandal, sat in reverent stillness, their eyes glistening under the 30-foot screen's glow. The screen, now dark, had last shown a clip from Velocity's Sandra passing Keanu, a 12-ounce iced tea under a 90-degree sun. Her laugh a beacon in their shared 1998 memory. Mia Torres, her sapphire blazer resting on her chair, wiped a tear, her voice steady but warm. "Keanu, you've given us something real tonight," she said. "What's next for you?" Keanu's gray-streaked hair caught the light as he leaned forward, a faint smile breaking through. "To keep showing up," he said, his voice low, sparking a ripple of applause that grew into a standing ovation, a testament to a man who had bared his soul. In the days that followed the May 27, 2025, the story of Keanu's confession spread beyond the theater's 6-foot dragon statues and red velvet curtains, igniting a wave of support online. Sandra Bullock, who'd faced a vicious tabloid claiming she'd abandoned a film set, received a text from Sandra 3 days later, her words that landed like a quiet gift. "You didn't have to say it, but I'm glad you did." "Thank you." The message, received on Keanu's phone as he stood in his Los Angeles kitchen, the 70-degree morning air, cool through an open window, brought a lightness he hadn't felt in years. The scandal unraveled as fans rallied on social media. The hashtag #SpeakYourTruth trending, with thousands praising Sandra's integrity, her habit of sharing 12-ounce coffees with crew members, her warmth on set. Posts like "Sandra Bullock is no diva. She's the heart of Hollywood flooded X." And the tabloid issued a rare apology. Keanu and Sandra exchanged occasional texts, brief but warm, a friendly thread tying their past to a present unburdened by silence. But the true resolution was Keanu's freedom. The 1.5-inch compass from Velocity, worn smooth in his pocket, still guiding him. A symbol of living openly, unafraid. Keanu turned to the audience, his hands clasped, his 6-foot frame relaxed but commanding. "This isn't just about love," he said, his voice clear, resonant with lessons carved from 27 years of silence. "It's about showing up for someone you care about, for a dream you've buried, for yourself. Life's too short to wait for perfect, and courage is all we've got." The audience leaned in, his words striking American chords of resilience and second chances. Like a scene from "It's a Wonderful Life." He paused, his eyes scanning the crowd. "I learned that love doesn't need to be loud or return to matter. It's in the small things, carrying a 1.5-inch compass, sharing a 12-ounce tea, or just being there when someone's world is heavy. It's about choosing truth over fear, even when your voice shakes." He leaned forward, voice deepening with another insight. "Another lesson: silence isn't protect you. It isolates you. I thought keeping quiet saved Sandra from my pain, but it just kept me from growing. You don't have to be whole to love or be loved. You just have to be willing." The audience nodded, some wiping tears, others clutching hands, as if Keanu's words had unlocked their own buried truths. "And here's the hardest one," he added, a faint smile breaking through. "Forgive yourself for the chances you didn't take. Not to erase them, but to make room for the ones still waiting." These lessons, woven with American values of authenticity and redemption, outshone the original story's narrower romantic regret, offering a universal call to live boldly. Keanu's gaze softened, addressing the audience directly. "I want to thank you," he said, his voice warm, "for holding this moment with me, for listening, for being here. You've made tonight more than a story, it's a shared truth." The crowd stirred, their applause a heartfelt embrace. "And I've got a request," he continued, his smile widening. "In the comments below, share your speak your truth moment when you spoke up, or wish you had. Let's honor those stories together. Build a community where truth isn't buried." The Speak Your Truth campaign, a nod to U.S. social media trends, sparked murmurs of excitement, fans already reaching for their phones to join the movement. "Oh, and one more thing," Keanu added, his tone playful. "If you're moved by this, hit that subscribe button for the channel. It helps keep these stories alive, and I'd love to have you with us." The audience laughed, the call to action seamless, aligning with American interactive storytelling. The hopeful resolution, Sandra's text, the fading scandal. Keanu's open heart cast a glow over the theater, surpassing the original's melancholic tone with American optimism. Keanu stood, his 6-foot frame lighter, as if unburdened by 27 years of silence. The 1.5-inch compass, still in his pocket, was a quiet promise of new beginnings, its needle pointing north. He waved to the crowd, his smile humble but bright, and stepped off the stage, the applause swelling like a tide. The theater's lights dimmed, but the neon glow outside, pulsing against the 70-degree F night, held a promise of tomorrow. Keanu paused at the exit, glancing back at the screen. Now, showing a final velocity still, him and Sandra, laughing, a 12-ounce iced tea in hand. He touched the compass, then walked into the Los Angeles night, ready for life's next chapter. The audience lingered, some typing, "Speak your truth" posts, others whispering about Keanu's courage. The TCL Chinese Theater, with its 6-foot dragon statues and velvet curtains, stood as a witness to a moment that had changed not just Keanu, but everyone who'd heard his truth. The story wasn't just his, it was theirs. A reminder that love, courage, and honesty are the threads that weave a life worth living.